all these terms here, they're used by agencies, by policymakers, and they're especially a concern for non-plantation or native forests in converting those to electricity or liquid fuel. Really, they are just logging by another name, still transferring carbon from the forest to the atmosphere. And I didn't find the Einstein quote that I wanted, but this kind of captures it also. It's just kind of the idea that the one I was looking for is if we keep using the same methods that cause the problem that we have to solve it, we're not going to be able to solve the problem. And in the best case scenario, we have degradation to our forest health. It's already fragile from decades of logging, and now climate change. This could push forests over the brink and cause complete die-off. We cannot simultaneously recognize forests as our carbon storage and regional life support systems, and also call for several 100% increase in volume extracted and consumed. And as I'm sure you know, forest removal or deforestation is the second largest cause of climate change. And so it's a problem with mitigating climate change on the global level, but also inhibits our adaptation on the local level. Until we rein in consumption, substituting forest biomass for fossil fuels will only further decimate forests we have left. And forest carbon removal accelerates regional and global climate change. Forests buffer our local climate, they keep it stable, they produce and conserve moisture and conserve soil. So they're necessary for us to be able to have food security. Recent study shows that even protected forests are dying twice as fast as they were 20 years ago. And this is because of their susceptibility with climate change to fires, to diseases, bark beetles. This shows our national forests, including tree farms. And when you look at this, it really doesn't look like enough forest to meet our energy demand. Forests are just not renewable on the time scale and the time frame that proponents are talking about, especially given the destruction we've already wreaked on our forests. And some scientists definitely agree with this assessment that the removal of waste from agricultural and forested lands is kind of a slippery slope to basically, stripping the land bare. And so, moving back again, the worst case scenario really, as Smolker describes it then, is that forest biomass used for energy will actually consume all that's left of our forests due to our desperation for energy. And unfortunately, under the alluring banner of renewable energy. Proposed thinning and forest biomass extraction erodes public trust. The public trust also, which is our forests. Corporations are robbing the public trust, and our lawmakers are trying to portray themselves as heroes for promoting renewable energy. Whereas part of what they're doing is really promoting for a few more years the inevitable need to slow down, to power down. Risking the elimination of our forests is not smoothing that transition. It's the final handout to an industry that continues to rob us of our ability to adapt to climate change. Moreover, lawmakers play on the public's fear of wildfire and don't tell the whole truth about wildfire when they promote logging in remote areas under the often false claim of fire risk reduction. They do not take adequate action to reduce fire risk immediately around homes where it matters most, or to limit development in fire-prone areas. Meanwhile, billions of taxpayer dollars go toward fighting fires every summer. Lane County, by the way, has funding from the county payments specifically earmarked for fire risk reduction, and also has a wildfire urban interface plan to reduce fire risk. So we do have the ability to address fire risk sensibly, locally. We could create jobs by reducing fire risk of those who are elderly or disabled, and Cascade Ecosystem Advocates has a fire home demo project. We already have held a work party to reduce fire fuels within 100 feet of one home in Lane County. So wildfire is natural. It's a part of most forest ecosystems. It's just the fire cycle that differs. Some forests every 20 years, some in every 120 years, as in Western Oregon. Climate change is increasing fire risk, but some research shows that not to the extent that climate modelers have predicted. And replacing native forests with monoculture plantations also increases fire risk. So humans have contributed to increase fire risk in other ways as well. We also are seeing studies that show that logging can make forests more fire prone via drying and also allowing more wind to blow through them. And this is especially a concern with native forests. We also have studies coming out that show that thinning can adversely affect waterways if not done properly. This is according to hydrologist Jonathan Rhodes in a report commissioned by the Pacific Rivers Council, and also Sierra Club in Eastern Oregon. They've seen several examples of this. Most forest fires emit far less carbon than logging. As you can see from this graph, logging transfers carbon stored in forest biomass to the atmosphere, into atmospheric CO2, about twice as much as fire does. Recently, we've heard a lot from our elected officials on the need for thinning and forest biomass extraction. How do you suppose that we can pay for all that road building and hauling trees away without taking trees to pay for it, as opposed to doing actually sound restoration? DeFazio, Wyden, Governor Kulongoski are all outspoken proponents of thinning tens of thousands of acres of biodiverse, non-plantation, even mature forests on public lands, and then removing the slash and understory for conversion to electricity and liquid fuel. While DeFazio continues to push new spending of tax dollars on new fossil fuel infrastructure, he also supports liquidating our public trust in the form of our forests. When I spoke with his natural resource legislative assistant earlier this week, he told me that DeFazio is passionate about the utilization of forest biomass for energy to create rural jobs. I told him that we are not fooled. This is still extraction. It is still creating CO2 emissions. It is still a handout to industry, and it's definitely could be a nail in the coffin of our regional climate. Congressman DeFazio's Watershed Restoration Corps, on the other hand, which would remove failing logging roads, which threaten our waterways, is the kind of jobs that we need. And other groups have proposed even bolder legislation to address this problem. This concept of feeding the beast, if we have a centralized facility, it's going to need to run 24/7 practically in order to be economical for the industry that's running it. And Mark went into this quite a bit. According to the Forest Service, it says that corporations can extract about 320 million tons of woody material per year to meet our ethanol demand. Oregon Department of Forestry states that 6.5 million acres of forest need to be thinned, and about 3 million tons of woody waste, quote-unquote waste, could be extracted to produce nearly 200 million gallons of ethanol. So they're already thinking about, like, what are the limits, how far we can take this? Well, it is just plain wrong to equate energy from forest biomass with the sun's energy, as our renewable portfolio standard does, pretty much. Just like you must apply compost in your garden to add back nutrients you remove when you harvest food, forests need more than the sun to live. The BLM actually employs someone to evaluate impact to soil from the removal of carbon from the forest.